Let's bring in Chris Stigall.
He is Chris Stigall.
Chris Stigall.
I'm joined now by Chris Stigall,
host of the Chris Stigall Show.
So let's bring in talk radio host Chris Stigall.
Also, his podcast is a must-listen every day. Chris Stigall Show podcast.
And host of the Chris Stigall Show.
Let's bring in Chris Stigall.
Please welcome Chris Stigall.
The Chris Stigall podcast is presented by usmedicalplan.com. Save big money monthly and get better health coverage at usmedicalplan.com.
Well, hey there. Welcome into the Chris Stigall Show podcast. Thanks a lot for downloading this. And if I could be so bold as to ask a quick favor, I don't do this often, but if you have a second, do you mind, if you're an Apple Podcast consumer or you're a Spotify user, could you leave a written review and a 5-star review of this podcast? It helps others learn about it and spread the good word. We're so appreciative. And thanks a lot for choosing this show, as you do each and every day, consistently making this one of the top-performing news commentary podcasts out there in the universe of all there is to choose from these days. And I thank our sponsor now for years, John Ruhlman, who has been basically the principal sponsor of this show and has helped so many of you in this audience, most importantly. The reason I love doing business with John and the team at U.S. Medical Plan is because they really help people in this audience. I'm not just talking about people that I've heard from through email. I'm talking about people in my own life. Colleagues of mine, friends of mine, my own parents. I sent my parents to John and his team when they were looking for supplemental insurance with their Medicare. John saved them $400 a month. That's my senior parents, all right? I have a personal friend who had a daughter with some special health needs. He was spending tons of money a month on private health insurance for them. John got him a better plan, saved him $1,000 a month. I have colleagues that have saved hundreds of dollars a month. If you're a small business owner and you supply insurance for your employees, that's a generous thing to do. Is it really expensive? And you're thinking, maybe I can't do it anymore? Wait. Call John. Reach out to his team. They shop with 100 different private health insurers all over the country. If you're an Obamacare user, that is not getting any cheaper this year. I can already tell you it's going to go up, up, up. There are private health insurance companies out there that have much lower rates than you think and cover everything that you need. I know people assume if it's cheaper, it means less coverage. Not necessarily. Or it may be that you have the best coverage going, but you're not going to know until you reach out. Please turn to the team at usmedicalplan.com, usmedicalplan.com, or give them a call today, 877-410-4321. That's 877-410-4321 or usmedicalplan.com. It's good to be with you, folks. Welcome in on this midweek edition of the Stigall Show. And the sun is coming up on what will be, I think, a decidedly different New York City in the months and years to come after Election Day yesterday. Good to be with you. Our telephone number, 855-STIGALL, if you'd like to be a part of the program today, particularly if you're in one of these places that's now been taken over by this lunatic, this communist, Mandami. I don't know what to tell you about it, folks. It's difficult. I was kind of going over some of my thoughts in the Harumph Society, my 3 times a week newsletter, which I'm actually doing this week, a 3-part series on AI. I will have some thoughts on this election, too. But the hostile environment we find ourselves in, listen, it is not a surprise when the Republicans are in total control, when Donald Trump is at the top of the food chain. It is not a surprise that the American left is animated and are more motivated to come out and vote than Republicans are. It's kind of always true. This is not unusual that the party in total control gets a shellacking when there's an opportunity for the opposite party to respond. And we know that the American left is highly animated, highly agitated, highly motivated. And our side typically, and I know we're talking about gubernatorial races and mayoral races and things like that, so it's not apples to apples exactly. And I do think come next year there will be something different to talk about. I do. And I think a lot of it's going to have to do with the Supreme Court, believe it or not, which starts to hear arguments today on tariffs, which I'll get into that in a minute. But right now, there can be no dispute that the American left's animation and hatred and anger is what drove them yesterday. They, simply put, wanted it worse. You know, a team that's up against it and needs a win versus a team that's just been rolling, kind of lay back on your heels. Fast Eddie, it's true in football, I know. You got a team that's rolling They've lost virtually no games. You got a team that's up against it in near elimination. They play a little harder sometimes. And sometimes that team that's been rolling gets spanked by the team that's desperate, right? I think that's what happened yesterday, as far as I can see it.
Yep, best I can liken it to, like the Commanders last year, right?
Yep, that's right. This is a hostile environment, as we know. I wrote about this, a few weeks ago at the Harum Society. I was just looking over my thoughts because, frankly, I can't top myself once I put it down to paper. I said this is a hostile environment that's sustained by three interconnected traps. I don't know if you heard that Zoran Mandami speech last night. Holy cow. This guy said, effectively, the oppressed are now running City Hall. He's 34. He's run, I heard Hugh Hewitt, my colleague, saying last night, this guy's run, I don't know that he's run like a bake sale. He's managed 10 people. He's now going to run a city of 330,000 employees or some such. He's an ideologue. And so I said that these three interconnected traps that Democrats promote, it worked for him. The first is, of course, the concept of fabricated victimhood. Constant comparisons to those who are enforcing the law, to the Gestapo and Hitler, and creating this false sense of oppression, linking personal identity to grievances and making electoral defeats feel like an existential threat. The second is moral absolutism. Nuance disappears, and opponents are portrayed as irredeemable monsters, Nazis, fascists, justifying violence. Hello, Attorney General race in Virginia as Exhibit A. Yikes. A guy openly saying he believes that Republicans and their children ought to be executed. And he won pretty handily. They justify violence as righteous reaction. I mean, President Biden, his own words, his own calls to beat the hell out of Republicans. And then, of course, the echo chamber contagion I wrote about. Universities, media outlets inundating vulnerable individuals with tales of injustice. Studies show dramatically increase aggression when people feel they are aggrieved and suffering injustice and oppressed. Democrats incentivize extreme reactions. We saw it in Charlie Kirk's murder, celebrating the murder of health insurance CEOs. This energizes their unhinged base, and they came out and they won. I mean, you had George Soros's kid posting a picture yesterday, lovingly embracing Mandami, said he's so excited to be a New Yorker. Now, there are a couple of different bits of analysis here that I wanted to ask about, one being from the gubernatorial candidate in Ohio, who, at one point he ran for office as president and or as a presidential candidate. Vivek Ramaswamy is who I'm talking about. And he says that Republicans got shellacked yesterday because they're not talking enough about prices and things that affect people and focus too much on identity politics. Do you agree with that assessment, Ed, that we are spending too much time talking about identity politics? And I can only assume that specifically he's talking about Zoran Mandami and the fact that we called attention to him being an Islamist. Because here's the thing, Vivek's a smart guy, smarter than me, so I'm not, and I've never run for office, so I'm not pretending to tell you that I know better than him, but I will tell you this. If Vivek thinks that we ought not talk about what Islamists are and why they're a threat to the Republic, I just fundamentally disagree with Vivek Ramaswamy. Now, I know he's, of Indian descent, I think, and maybe he has sort of a personal issue with feeling like some people try to put him in a box because he has brown skin or whatever. That's certainly not the case with me. I don't know many conservatives that feel that way about him. I was always an advocate of his. I welcomed him on the show. So I don't know where he comes from with this idea that Republicans are talking identity politics. Do you? Does he mean we shouldn't talk about transgender issues? Does he mean we shouldn't talk about Islamism? What does Vivek mean when he says, I mean, I get focusing on the economy, but to say Republicans made a mistake and got shellacked yesterday because they were too focused on identity politics, was that your sense of it?
That wasn't my sense of it. My sense of it was, though, that they were not talking about the kitchen table issues enough. That was not a part of the messaging for anybody. Other than energy prices, did you hear anything about making life more affordable?
Yeah, and I think, the reason I think they can't, and I'm not saying they shouldn't, I think the calculation is if you talk about kitchen table issues, then people would say, well, who's in charge of government right now? Trump and Republicans, right, is what I think. Now, I'm spitballing here, but I think the instinct is if you don't talk about the economy improving, but rather say it's not working, then you basically are saying that your party and your party's prescription aren't working. And here's the deal. That does bring me to I don't want to move off this yet. What do you think Republicans were talking about then, if not kitchen table issues, Ed? And I'm not putting you on the spot here. I'm just curious, your analysis of this. And I don't disagree. People are still out there struggling, and you feel like Republicans were not connecting with that. Vivek says the same thing. But he says they were talking identity politics, which I find kind of an interesting discussion because I don't know what that means. If we don't talk about what Democrats stand for and what they believe, particularly when you're talking about Mandami, is it a good idea to just ignore it?
It's not a good idea to ignore it, but you have from the very top, even Donald Trump on down, calling him a communist. I mean, he said on television multiple times to the white suburban mom watching The View, I'm not a communist, I'm a Democrat socialist. That connected with people in 2016, with Bernie voters very well. So I think the labels over and over again, beating Mandami over the head with that was not a good look nationwide. I'm not saying we shouldn't call them out for what they are, someone like him, like an Islamo-fascist type, but it may have hurt Republicans this time around.
Okay, so that brings up an interesting point, because I kept hearing last night that Republicans are going to point to Mandami and his governance of New York City as their jumping off point for the midterms next year. They're going to point to him and say, that's going to happen here, in our town, in our state, in our governor's mansion, in our Senate office. That's going to happen here if you're not careful, Republicans. Come on out and vote for me. You think that making him the focus then, if I hear you right, is not a strategy for Republicans. They ought to just ignore him?
Not ignore him, but they haven't proven with any kind of track record that they can win against that kind of ideology. They haven't proven, without the Democrats taking out their own, like they did with Bernie 3 times, without them doing that, we've never beaten them in an election. When Trump's not on the ballot, we do not win elections. So nothing shows me we can beat a Mamdani anywhere nationwide.
And you believe that's because the Republicans don't have anything to sell, or aren't selling it well enough?
Aren't selling it well enough, and the left's too animated. The left's they have the emotion, they have the energy.
All right, we'll explore this some more in a moment. Post-mortem after a Republican shellacking last night on the Stigall Show. Okay, well, that's a sane bright spot in last night. Cuomo pulled away in Orthodox Jewish precincts. He approached 80% of the Orthodox Jewish vote. Well, okay, that's good. Jews don't have a total suicide mission yet in New York City. I guess there's some silver lining there. Yeah, they still voted for Cuomo, but who wouldn't let them worship, I believe, if memory serves. But anyway, welcome in as we continue to do the postmortem and unpack last night's big victories in, look, blue areas. I mean, we're talking about Virginia. We're talking about New York City. We're talking about New Jersey. Jack Ciattarelli, Fast Eddie, did not keep it tight. I mean, he was within 2 or 3 of who then was the incumbent second-term governor in Phil Murphy, but this time it was not as tight. How do you explain that one?
It wasn't, and Chris, I don't know if the political polling game is completely over or if Democrats have figured out the strategy of lying to the pollsters.
Yeah.
It was bad.
Well, that is going to be one of the stories that ought not be ignored, is the fact that, even likely voter polls had this, within single digits, I think, for both of these races in Virginia and New Jersey at one point. And that didn't turn out that way in either instance. But I want to stay with the identity politics argument for a moment because I'm intrigued with it. Eddie and I were talking about this during the break, and I know what he's saying. Women in particular don't believe. They just don't believe. They still don't believe, and leftist women in particular do not believe that Islamists are a danger. They don't even know what Islam is. White liberal women in this country do not understand when they chant from the river to the sea and they put up their black boxes in solidarity with Marxist movements like BLM, and they see smiling, charming 34-year-old guys like Mandami on their favorite television show or their favorite podcast or whatever at the club. He's a charming, handsome young guy. He's not whatever it is you say, Stigall. He's not an Islamist. He's not a monster. Is that it, Ed? Women just cannot bring themselves in particular. I'm not saying it's exclusively women, but particularly women cannot bring themselves to even wonder aloud to themselves what Islamism is.
They don't believe. They don't believe.
They don't want to hear it
that bad. And I'll go a step further. They even like the fact it's just like, oh, isn't this great? See, we as Americans, only 20 years after 9/11, we can say that we put a Muslim in the position that he's like. That's that kind of sentiment. I don't know if I'm explaining.
Okay,
that
so
well.
the Obama thing, it's the same thing. No, it's Obama. I mean, Obama was this, we were all going to heal the country. There will be no more divides, no red states, blue states. We were going to elect a historic first black president. We were going to heal the nation's wounds. Kumbaya, my lord. And what happened? Some of the most divisive policies ever befell the country. And I think with the help of Joe Biden and a third term of Barack Obama, drove some of the most destructive and divisive policies the country has ever known. And caused, by the way, a Donald Trump presidency, which is sort of interesting. I mean, do things have to just become ruinously bad by hardcore left-wing fascists masked in smiles before a Donald Trump can rise from the ashes? Is that it? We have to go through 20 years of wilderness of being beaten and pummeled by fascist policies in order for the country to wake up and say, and I don't say the country, that's not fair. I don't think it's the country. This audience, for instance, is awake and paying full attention. But what, to demoralize and keep these people that think, I'm going to vote for the black guy to heal the country, or I'm going to vote for the Muslim guy to show we need a change of course and we're all enlightened or whatever. But then when it turns out their destructive policies are unloaded on the American public and it crushes the average voter, then they kind of skulk off. They go off to lick their wounds. They're not as motivated or whatever. And then the surge of support for people like Donald Trump comes. Is that kind of where we are? You say Republicans don't know how to win an election.
That's
a general election. So we just have to go through, what, a generation of Republicans getting crushed before people realize Democrats and their policies are not the answer, only for Republicans to get another bite at the apple?
That's exactly it. Yes, I do think it takes a generation. Think of how long it took between Ronald Reagan and Donald Trump. A generation's probably right.
Yeah. And that brings me to what Donald Trump is trying to fix and what Donald Trump has inherited, which has been a total mess, as you know. And O'Reilly kind of unpacked this yesterday, and I want to get to that coming up, and I want to discuss this in more detail. I didn't believe that what Donald Trump is setting in motion, and again, it's hard to make a more mayoral race about Donald Trump necessarily. They don't necessarily have anything to do with one another, but the country right now collectively is feeling a way that things aren't getting better. And it's going to take a minute to right this ship after the destruction of Obama and Biden. Good to be with you, folks. Welcome in on this Wednesday edition of the Stigall Show. Our telephone number, 855-STIGALL, if you want to get in here. Got an email this morning from Mesa, Arizona. And Grayson, he said, Chris, I believe what happened in New Jersey, in New York, and Virginia, especially Virginia, was in part a lot of the voters that were either laid off or fired government workers getting a bit of revenge on Trump. That's my opinion. Probably a big part of it. Are these all government workers and only government workers? Probably not. You know, Bill O'Reilly said something interesting yesterday on Chris Cuomo's show. Of course, Cuomo's sitting there. His brother just got his butt handed to him in this mayoral election in New York. And I think O'Reilly's onto something here, and I concur. You know, today the Supreme Court kicks off oral arguments on Trump's tariff agenda, something that I've laid out in great detail at the Harumph Society, something I've been talking about here. We are in the midst of an economic emergency. There can be no doubt about it. I think Donald Trump is trying to right that ship, and I don't think these things happen overnight. Just like when Reagan inherited the mess from Carter, he could not turn the ship around overnight. He did end up winning a second term, but it took some doing, and the economy was soft in Reagan's early going, and it still is now. I mean, this is not – it's going to take a minute for these policies to really set in. And so people are feeling up against it right now. They're feeling frustrated. People that are certainly not going to support Democrats and socialism and a guy like Mandami, they may just be inclined to sit it out. They're not feeling particularly excited. And so they just say, I'm just not going to participate. The left, on the other hand, people like Mandami that come along and start to sell what they're selling when people are still feeling like they're up against it, yeah, let's try that. It's a whipsaw. People still don't feel like the Republicans fixed what needs fixing. I don't think they've had the time, but it's hard to sell when people are struggling financially. It's hard to sell, give us a second. People don't want to wait. So let's go to what O'Reilly had to say yesterday in 99. I think he's correct that last night is not necessarily a harbinger of things to come for next year, assuming things turn around economically. And that's, you know, a big if, but I believe the formula is there. Take a listen.
This has nothing to do with the midterms. Zero. And the reason is so many things are going to happen between now and this time next year. And it's going to be a completely different country than it is now. Now, I can't predict which way that's going to go.
Then how do you know it's going to be a completely different country?
Because there are so many things that have to be decided. There are too many undecideds. And you can start with the Supreme Court ruling on the tariffs. You can start on that. And they'll rule in Donald Trump's favor because of the 1974 law that Gerald Ford signed into. They have to. The Supreme Court can't change the law. It has to uphold what's already been in precedent. Now, they'll rein Trump in a little bit, but that will give Trump then a free field to see if in the next 8 months the tariffs can kick in to bring prices down and to help people. That's what the midterms are all about. It's about economics here. It's not about China. It's not even about Putin. It's about that.
Yeah, I don't disagree. This Mandami victory in New York, it does serve as a significant warning. This guy secured more than 50% of the vote, and in my view becomes the most dangerous mayor the country's ever seen. This guy's 34. He's a straight-up communist, strong Islamist ties, plans to defund the police and freeze rent in a manner that I think will severely impact housing availability. He's going to impose taxes that are so incredible they may end up driving business out of the city entirely. That speech he gave last night was filled with bitterness, labeling business owners as oppressors, calls to globalize the intifada. That's a rallying cry for violence against Israel. He's pledged to arrest Benjamin Netanyahu if he winds up on New York grounds. In a city forever marked by 9/11, this is not an anomaly. This is a genuine threat. If Democrats should regain control of Congress next year, this movement is going to spread rapidly across the country. It will destroy free markets. It will increase crime. And that's why Trump has to succeed here. And he's got about a calendar year, assuming the Supreme Court doesn't get in the way. But this outcome did not happen overnight. This has been fueled by a series of decisions made by Democrats that have sown resentment, as I was talking about off the top. It shattered economic stability for every American. The COVID pandemic alone was a pretext for them to pour trillions of dollars into unchecked spending. What did that do? It led to a huge increase in national debt. It resulted in sharp interest rate hikes from the Fed. Young people who were already burdened by student loans and schooled in Marxist ideology at that, home ownership has now become an unattainable dream for them. They're mad. They're perpetual renters. They're not accumulating wealth, and they're mad about it. And then, of course, there's the open border policies. That's exacerbated the situation. Millions have poured into the country without plans to assimilate, placing immense pressure on welfare, Social Security, police forces constrained by sanctuary protections. I mean, I think in Queens, over half of those who voted for Mandami weren't even American-born citizens. Then, of course, there's inflation that followed, the lavish spending, the restrictions on our energy. That increased prices, accelerated credit card debt. That fueled resentment. Democrats fanned the flames by unleashing the courts on Trump in an effort to bankrupt, silence, assassinate, and imprison him, calling him the worst thing ever. Pelosi said that this week. We played the clip for you yesterday. Nothing worse in human history than Donald Trump. And then there's the, I think, not so small matter of Jerome Powell, the Fed chair, who absolutely refused to lower interest rates, deliberately missing the opportunity to ignite growth and make mortgages more affordable again. And the result of this is a volatile mix of anger, which has pushed voters toward extremism, who thrive in the midst of this stuff. Virginia in particular exemplifies this danger. Democrats, who dominated there, of course, elected Jay Jones as their attorney general. This is a guy whose rhetoric included fantasies about killing Republicans and their children. They elevated this Abigail Spanberger as governor, who is a strong advocate for trans surgeries on minors, an issue that has destroyed our children, increasing depression and regret and heightened suicide rates. She's no moderate. Democrats are banking on outrage as their strategy. It's straightforward. If they regain power, they will steer the economy toward another crash. They're advocating for more Obamacare spending right now, when, of course, that's not the answer. It's only made it more expensive. When prosperity collapses, of course, people won't rebuild through free markets. Instead, they're going to clamor for a strong man to take control. Exhibit A, Mandami. An authoritarian leader wielding unchecked power. And this, of course, follows the classic path to communism. Destroy it all first, tear it all down first, and then dictate. Become a benevolent dictator with a smile. This misstep by New York it's a symptom. Virginia's results confirm this trend, too. 2026 is approaching in a year, and the future of the republic teeters. Donald Trump's economic agenda, if given the chance to work, Donald Trump's economic agenda, if not stymied by the Supreme Court or an activist Federal Reserve chair, I believe can start to turn the economy around. But we've been through hell economically. The country, in 4 short years under that pretend old man president that we just had, was a destruction, the likes of which the country hasn't seen. Steroids. Trump's trying to put that toothpaste back in the tube. It's going to be a heavy lift. I have faith, but in the interim, people want answers, they're struggling, and they're going to turn to people like Mandami if they think Republicans can't offer it. $855-STIGAL's the telephone number. Let's get your reaction. In Tennessee, it's Bill to kick. Bill, how do you read last night? Good morning. Welcome in.
Good morning. I'm 83 years old, and what I'm about to say is something I remember, not something I read. Over 60 years ago, Nikita Khrushchev from Russia came to New York and spoke at the UN. And in his speech, he said, "America, we will bury you from within, and we will do it without ever firing a shot." And now we are, 60 years later, a Muslim communist as mayor of New York. What does it take for this country to wake up about communism?
Well, You know, young women are a huge part of this story, too. I don't know what to say about it other than what we've pointed out before, and I appreciate the call. 81% of young women voted for Mandami last night in New York. 81%. In New Jersey, 80% voted for Cheryl. In Virginia, almost the same. Almost 80% of women per NBC's exit polls voted for Spanberger. Young women in particular. They are a huge part of this story again. We are seeing a cultural divide in the country between young men and young women. Young women are highly motivated to cleave toward this very thing I was just talking about. Young men right now are rejecting it. Stigall is the telephone number. Out in California, Prop 50 passed too. 60-40, Prop 50 passed, which means districts will be rejiggered, and they will probably pick up another 5 congressional seats out of it. Democrats will. So sort of trying to do what they hoped to do was erase the Texas redistricting gains. Scott, waiting patiently. Glad you called. How do you read last night? Good morning.
Hey, good morning, Chris. Just 2 quick points. Mandami and what happened in New York has happened in geopolitical history before. The youth of the Democrat movement, disaffected because they weren't getting all the free stuff, took their party over. And I'm sure that that's the driving factor behind the 80% female vote for it. They want the security of the forgiven student loan. They want free transportation. They want free child care. They want single payer. So this has happened before. Democrats can't call themselves Democrats anymore. They're either Marxists or socialists. That's the first point. The second point, in California, a Christmas miracle happened last night. Chris, were you aware of it?
I wasn't, but hang on. Let me put you back on hold because I got to take a break, and I don't want to rush you. So that's a nice hook. Yeah, give me a little of this, I guess. Number 13 from last night, Wildwood, New Jersey. We're looking at you this morning. Beautiful-looking sun coming up. The Chitterelli race comes to an end, and it does not end well for Chitterelli. Loses by a much bigger margin than many were predicting to the new governor-elect of New Jersey. Is it Mickey or Mikey? I don't even want to learn it. I really don't. Mickey, Mikey. Oh, Mickey, you're so fine. Mickey, Mikey, Cheryl. Is it Governor Cheryl? I don't know. What grown woman's name is Mikey or Mickey? What the hell is it, Ed?
It's Mikey.
Stupid. Can we give her a real name? Mikey. Mikey likes it. He'll eat anything. It's about right. It's the old Life commercial, kids. That was an old commercial. You put food in front of a kid and he'll eat anything. That pretty much sums up Democrats. And those who vote for them, they'll buy anything. They'll vote for anything. 855-STIGAL. Anyway, good morning, New Jersey. Here's a little Mandami, number 13 from last night.
Thank you to those so often forgotten by the politics of our city who made this movement their own. I speak of Yemeni bodega owners and Mexican abuelas, Senegalese taxi drivers and Uzbek nurses, Trinidadian line cooks and Ethiopian aunties. Yes, aunties.
Okay. God bless America. That was a real Stars and Stripes, Red, White, and Blue speech, wasn't it? Winston Churchill said it. Socialism is a philosophy of failure, the creed of ignorance, and the gospel of envy. Its inherent virtue is the equal sharing of misery. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. We're about to try something extraordinary. Bold, unapologetic, unvarnished, unhidden, straight up socialism, promised by the mayor of the biggest city of the country. We pop the popcorn so long as we can afford popcorn and wait and watch. All right, back to the phone. Scott was patient. He said there was a Christmas miracle to come of last night in California. I'm curious. You have my interest piqued. Thanks for your patience, Scott. What was it?
Hey, good. Yeah, in California, what we got last night was material proof that the state of California can call an election 3 minutes after the polls close. It's the first time I've seen that happen in 12 years in the state. And Gavin Newsom is going to work at a lightning speed. He's probably going to sign that today, guaranteed. But he has to work at a lightning speed to get rid of all the envelopes. That's what he's worried about. If Harmeet Dillon or Pam Bondi request the retention of those documents and get it, then the gig is up. They're going to destroy every envelope in the state as fast as they can. And thank you for taking my call, Chris.
So what are you suggesting? That this was not an on the up and up election? That it really wasn't the win for Prop 50 that they're reporting? Is that what you mean?
No, I don't think it is. What we witnessed last night was blue states electing Democrats. Wow. We also witnessed the effectiveness of the mail-out ballots and ballot harvesting.
Yeah.
It's the biggest reason Stacey Abrams became famous. She showed the DNC how to do this. And like I said, calling the election 3 minutes after the polls close, that hasn't happened here in any election in at least a decade.
And so what's your ultimate summary on that? That means what?
That means that they collected the ballots and knew exactly what they needed. Shiloh Marks has already reported that ineligible and inactive voters were engaged in this election. So I don't doubt it one bit because I've lived here half my life, and that's how they run these elections. So Gavin's number one priority is getting rid of the evidence. He can't drag out the litigation process like the blue states did in 2020 until their legally required time was met, and then they just destroyed them because the DOJ can expedite that litigation process.
All right, my friend, thank you. 855-STIGAL is how you reach us. If you'd like to get in here today, that's Scott in California. Thanks, Scott. One other thing I think you're going to find, remember yesterday, if you were with us and listened to the show, Marsha Blackburn said as much. She basically confirmed it. I was already reading yesterday. There are big discussions going on amongst Democrats and Republicans in the Senate. Fast Eddie, what if, voila, in the next 24, 48 hours, there's a break in the impasse and the government is reopened? Would that surprise you?
That wouldn't surprise me in the least, Chris. It's been edging towards that a little while now.
Which should say to all thinking people, here again, offer conversation. We're talking about thinking people who are using logic. If the Democrats finally sign off and say, okay, we're going to reopen the government, all's well, you'd think that people who rewarded Democrats last night would go, I feel like maybe we were suckered. I feel like maybe the Democrats were lying to us all along about why they shut the government down. Maybe this was just a ploy for votes. You'd think would be the rationale, if people are paying attention, they'd come to. Democrats were imposing pain on us to win an election, is what you'd think the conclusion would be, but that's for people that are paying attention, Ed.
It is.
How many of these people pay attention?
And there's no introspection, and they don't care. They won. That's all that matters. Okay. That was important, most important to them.
It's been my pleasure and honor to talk about Bob Spinato at Williamsburg Dental in Broomall, just off the Blue Route, as my dentist and friend of over 12 years. But now he has two brand new associates, his daughter Alexa and Dr. Geddes. Tell him about him, Bob.
Yeah, Chris, I can't begin to express how proud I am, obviously, of having my daughter there. Also, Dr. Geddes is just a wonderful addition to our practice. He is a classmate of my daughter Alexa's at Temple Dental School, and I have known Jared for about 7 years now. Getting to know Jared over the years, it was my wife Debbie and my daughter Emily who kept telling me, you have to hire Jared. You have to hire Jared. He's going to be a superstar. Jared went off to USC, did a 1-year residency after his year at Temple, and he came back and he worked for about a year in a practice in New Jersey. And after, again, my wife and daughter beating my brains in, I got the message and I hired Jared, and he's been a great addition to Williamsburg Dental.
Pick up the phone or go online, make that appointment, 610-353-2700 or williamsburg-dental.com. I don't know if you enjoy grilling as much as I do at home, but a great tasting meal right off the grill, it's hard to beat. Listen, Grill Masters, I just met Matt. He created what is perhaps the most revolutionary product for your grill going. It's called My Grillie, Grillie. Go to mygrilly.com/Chris right now and take a look at this thing. Christine and I have been cooking with it at home. We love it. We're trying to eat more vegetables, so we throw them right there in My Grilly, roast them to perfection. It's perfectly designed, this basket, for your food. It doesn't let the food stick or fall through the grates. There's absolutely nothing you can't cook to perfection with My Grilly. It is the best gift you're going to give yourself or your favorite cook. MyGrilly.com/Chris. Go there, grab a 4-pack of these genius cooking tools for just $79.95, down from $119 originally. That's GRILLIE. MyGrilly.com/Chris. And stay tuned to the show. Matt's going to show us everything you can make, including dessert on the grill. MyGrilly.com/Chris. Good to be with you, folks. Welcome in on the midweek edition of the Stigall Show. Our telephone number, 855-STIGALL. Today's Harumph Society is coming to you as a part 2 of 3 on artificial intelligence specifically, and some thoughts on last night's election, too. And always a great place to hang out for wonderful audience members like yourself. If you're not a member yet, you should join us, because the conversation there is the best. Smart people don't necessarily always agree. It doesn't mean you're all in lockstep, but just really smart, sophisticated people who aren't trolls, most of all, like social media. Come on over. It's called the Harumph Society. It's my Substack. It's at chrisstigall.com, or you can go to Substack and look for the Harumph Society. Checking some emails this morning, which you can also find me at chrisstigall.com, and there's a way to reach out to me. Somebody named M. Lang said, I listened to MTG, Marjorie Taylor Greene, last night. She talked about how the Democrats win because they lock arms and stick together, and the Republicans need to do that. This woman has done nothing but bash the GOP for the past year. She's hurting our party. She lost those seats in Georgia. She sits there taking the blame for health care and complaining they're not working. What the hell is she thinking? Then, early in the day, she went on The View, played nice with those vile women. The party better stop being nice. Marjorie Taylor Greene needs to stop rubbing elbows with the enemy and stop talking. She is as bad as Adam Schiff. They both run to the camera to bash the GOP and Trump. Republicans need to pull it together, stick together, blame the Democrats for everything, or we lose in 2026. Don't give Marjorie Taylor Greene any praise for her camera time. This is specifically what this individual emailing me about is discussing. Yeah, Marjorie Taylor Greene went on The View yesterday. Take a listen to number 2 here. Number 2.
And so I have no problem pointing fingers at everyone. And the worst thing that I just can't get over is we're not working right now. And I put that criticism directly on the Speaker of the House. And we should be at work. All the people sitting in this audience, they go to work every day. People at home watching this show, they go to work every day. Ladies, you go to work every day, the people on your set, and it is an embarrassment to me that we're not in session.
Mm-hmm. And getting paid.
I'm not taking a paycheck.
Good for you.
Exactly.
I'm not taking a paycheck.
Exactly.
Good
for you. Guy Shiraki is a great friend of ours. He knows politics like the back of his hand. He plays in the sandbox of politics in Pennsylvania. Interesting things always happen in Pennsylvania, it seems, on elections. There were some retention elections that happened in Pennsylvania, and all the Democrat Supreme Court members in Pennsylvania were retained last night. But he watches these things on a kind of a global perspective, too, and joins us again. Guy, I saw 56% of respondents in exit polls said last night in New York, 56% of them were concerned about the economy, followed by crime, and it was like half of the respondents comparatively. So we have an economic problem. There's no question about it. Marjorie Taylor Greene goes on The View and says, we really need to be working. I hear some people inside the Republican ranks, and you've heard it lately, that say, President Trump needs to fix and focus on us and needs to stop going overseas and needs to think of... I would argue Donald Trump is moving heaven and earth, try to fix the economic system in the country, but it is going to take a minute, Guy, and we're not... When people are struggling, and people are, not dismissing it, it takes more than a calendar year to reverse course from the destruction we've been living, to be clear. But that's a hard message for Republicans to sell. So that's a lot. How do you see it, sir? Good morning.
Good morning. Yeah, I think there are two things at play. The first is that we now see that as the Republicans take in office, and it's been less than a year they've been in office, that we inherited a mess. I mean, we joke sometimes the things we say in politics are true. The border was wide open. Inflation was out of control. There were wars raging around the world. Government was not working. Our energy had been messed up. And President Trump has had 10 months to try and fix it, and it hasn't fixed yet. I won't speak for you, Chris, but I'm of a certain age that I remember the mess that Ronald Reagan inherited from Jimmy Carter. It took a while. By 1984,
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but this is so important. I don't want to interrupt you, but I was just making this point, and you remember it well. So please give us a bit of a history lesson. Walk us back for those of us of a certain age in this audience who maybe didn't live it, weren't paying bills then. What do you remember about that era? How long did it take before people felt the boom of Reagan's policies? There was a malaise that carried into his first term.
Yes. Well, kids, sit back and I'll tell you a story about what it was like. Well, President Reagan and the Republicans were elected in 1980 because it was in many ways similar to what we went through. America was being held, literally were being held hostage by the Iranians. Mortgage interest rates were double digits, in some communities hitting as high as 20%. The unemployment rate was high, and we as a nation felt beaten in despair. President Reagan came in and said, we can do better. If you will, President Trump talks about make America great again. And that's what Ronald Reagan said. We want to make America the shining city on the hill. And frankly, 1981 and 82 were bumpy rides, because when interest rates are through the roof, when inflation is out of control, when government spending is wasteful and reckless, and when you're in the international community, no one's paying attention to us and not respecting us, it takes a while to do that. And so I believe the analogies are that President Trump and the Republicans are in the midst of that. And just like any other mess or disaster, after an earthquake, after a hurricane, if you come back a few weeks later after those tragic hurricanes in North Carolina, a few months later, life doesn't look normal yet. So we believe, you have to believe that what he's doing is ultimately going to work. But people are uneasy. And look, there's a second part of this, which is the Democrats are much better at rallying the troops. There's something that MTG said that's true, and that is the Democrats are much better. They're much better at playing emotions. I still think, because you and I believe and your listeners believe that results matter and logic matter, that sometimes we focus on logic and results on the conservative side. And the Democratic side, the liberal side, the socialist side, and you said it with Mandami, it's about emotion. And far too often, emotion trumps logic. Emotion is what gets people to the polls. We went through the retention race here in Pennsylvania. I talked about the fact that they had abused power during COVID. And the other side said Donald Trump wants to take over the Supreme Court and abortion's on the ballot. It's simple, it's exaggerated, it's untrue, but it does it. Their side is motivated. They're better at getting their voters to the polls. And those are the two problems. President Trump's trying to fix a mess, and while he's fixing the mess, the Democrats are playing on emotions. I'm a softball coach, and I tell my players, I tell my girls, sometimes you're the bug and sometimes you're the windshield. It's better to be the windshield. Yesterday, the Republicans were the bug. The windshield got them. The Democrats did better. And the question is, what do we learn from it as you look towards 2026?
Does this necessarily mean the same outcome for 2026? Do you read last night as for next year, or is it too far away and things, as we were just talking about historically, things could change, hopefully for the better? Got a big Supreme Court ruling on tariffs coming. That's another calendar year of President Trump's economic policies. Could fortunes change and it cause the Republic's mood to turn a little more rosy?
Well, I think a year from now, things will be different. And if life has taught us anything the last 20 years, is we will be talking about something next October and November that's probably not in the news today. Things will happen. So a year from now, again, a predictor, no, but informational and educational, yes. It reminds us that the Republican Party does very well with Donald Trump at the top. President Trump has a way of talking to people's not only their minds, but their hearts. The Republicans have yet to solve the riddle of how those people who may be supportive of them to get them to the polls. So last night was not necessarily a predictor of November 26th, but it was a warning sign to Republicans that the Democrats are better at getting their people to the polls, and that while we go through this transition, Republicans are going to have to work even harder. A year from now, things will change. In hope and in theory, things on energy will change, on the economy will change, crime, the border having been secured will matter. Peace in the Middle East, or what we hope is peace in the Middle East, will matter. But last night was an instructive warning. I hate to say that it was sort of preseason, because there were real races for governor, there were real races for school board, there were real races for judges. But as you look to Congress, the Republicans are going to have to get their act together and rally the troops. And Americans are going to have to decide, to me, a fundamental question. Do you want to continue to try to turn things around, or do we want to spend 2027 and 2028 with indictments, impeachments, and shutting government down as the Democratic Party seeks vengeance on the Republicans? The Republicans have to convince the American public that they'll do better, and the Democrats, frankly, have to convince people that 27 and 28 won't be about impeachments. That's going to be probably what we're going to be talking about next year. 2026 will be a conversation not so much about how things are, but what 2027 will be. Will it be about the economy and inflation, or will it be about impeachment hearings?
Guy Shiraki is at Real Clear Politics, Broad and Liberty. He is a senior fellow at the Commonwealth Foundation there in Pennsylvania. At PA Suburbs Guy on X, he has written very specifically, and will continue to write about some things on the ground in Pennsylvania you need to know about too. Guy, it's a pleasure to catch up with you. Thank you, my friend. More in a moment on the Stigall Show. Looking at Cincinnati this morning, the sun coming up and shining. Well, not if you're a Bengals fan, I guess. But other than that, sorry, didn't mean to poke you there, but looks like a beautiful day in Cincinnati otherwise. Thanks for listening on the Ticket, 1450 AM. Glad to have you here. Wherever you watch the Stigall Show on the Salem News Channel, maybe you watch it on your Samsung Plus television, maybe you stream it on our app. We're glad that you do. If you listen on great radio stations like the Ticket all over the country, thank you for being here. I do know, believe me, more than ever, I know there are a lot of places you could be instead, so that you give us your time in the morning. It is never, ever lost on us. And a very sincere thank you that you spend time with us every day. Really, we mean that. And thanks for the podcast support, too. Thanks for your 5-star reviews and your written reviews on the podcast whenever you listen. That helps us a ton. I know a lot of you like to catch the show later in the day, so thanks for that, if that's the way you consume it. You can always catch everything, social media, email, my 3 times a week newsletter, which comes out today, the Harumph Society, a 3-parter on AI I think you're going to enjoy. That's all at chrisstigall.com. That's Stigall, chrisstigall.com. Back to the phones. Carol has been waiting patiently in Minnesota, where it looks like maybe the full-blown Islamist may not take over as mayor in Minneapolis. Carol, good morning.
Yeah, that would be good. That would be good for us. Although I live in Blaine, north of Minneapolis, but I was born and raised in Minneapolis, a great city like New York. Oh, hopefully it can change. But I don't really think it was a blue wave, because New Jersey was already blue, and very rarely are we going to get that back, to be red. And Ken Martin said a while back, my main goal is to take Virginia back to a blue, in which they did do. Mm-hmm. So in New York, all those states were already blue. I don't really think it looks bad on the Republicans. I really don't.
Okay, little optimism from Carol this morning. I'll hear it. Not discounting it, not suggesting you're wrong here. Getting some emails this morning. Matthew said, I listen to your show most mornings. I'm a conservative. Are you making a distinction between Islamic and Islamist? If so, what is it? What are you getting at? Someone is not dangerous just because their religion is Islam. My company sponsored has been employed several Afghanis who were allies of America in Afghanistan and then abandoned by Biden. They are not dangerous. If that's what you're going to talk about, identity politics, it isn't helping any Republican get elected. Okay, Matthew, no, you do need to know the difference. And all due respect, Islamist is entirely different than Muslim. And I suppose you reminded me that every now and again, stepping down and reminding you that Islamic supremacy is a thing. It's a real thing. Sharia law is a real thing. And if you don't know the difference between I'm a Muslim who likes to lead my life as an American and live under American laws versus Islamists who wish to live under their laws, their theocratic laws of Sharia, if you don't understand the difference, you need to learn it. And I know people say, that's identity politics, Stigall. Well, no, that's our country. And frankly, the total lack of education in the American education system has led to a bunch of young people who think a smiling Islamist isn't so bad. He can't be any worse. I mean, I'm having trouble paying for rent, after all. So the smiling Islamist comes along and says he's going to give me free rent. Never mind, I'll have to wear a burqa, girls. And you're second-class citizens with Islamists. But, yeah, no. Thank you for the email, Matthew. No, I'm not saying Islam necessarily, although I think we could have that theological debate too. Muslims are different than Islamists. That is true. So thank you for the distinction. Keith said, Chris, why would blue states change when Republicans in Congress keep passing state and local tax deductions which incentivize terrible blue state policies by bailing them out with our money? That's an interesting point, Keith. Should Republicans hang tough and fight? Look, there were threatened shutdowns and threatened non-passages of bills out of the House. Ed, do you agree with that? Keith says we ought to stop as Republicans rewarding blue state. And by the way, not just Democrats. There were New York Republicans, if you remember, who fought hard for that state and local tax deduction. That a lot of conservatives said, no, we're tired of underwriting your high-tax state. We're not doing it. That was a real fight for a while that ultimately the Republicans capitulated on for their Republican friends in New York. You think Keith's right? That's one of those things we should let people live by the sword, die by the sword. You've made your bed, lie in it. No more SALT deductions at the federal level, Ed.
I'd like to see that, yes. I think that's hurting the conservative cause, is not standing strong on something like that and kind of capitulating to blue state Republicans on the SALT tax.
855 Stigall is the telephone number. Your reaction to last night. Keep them coming. James Lankford, Senator from Oklahoma, on the way. Sean Spicer as well, and Wesley Hunt from Texas. It's going to be a big Wednesday. Live look at Oklahoma City, Oklahoma this morning on the Salem News Channel. Thanks for listening throughout the great state of Oklahoma and all over the country, watching on the Salem News Channel. Looks like a beautiful start to the day there in Oklahoma City. We're thrilled for the first time to welcome to the show the United States Senator who represents the good people of Oklahoma. His name is James Lankford. And Senator, it is a real thrill to have you on the horn this morning. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, glad to join you today from Washington, D.C. I'm wishing I was back in sunny Oklahoma today.
I bet you do. Not that you guys haven't tried to go to work. I mean, you've had many votes to try to get yourselves back to work, right?
We have, actually. 14 times we've said to Democrats, just open the government. There's lots of negotiating to do on a million different issues. But why are we doing this while federal workers aren't being paid, Head Start's closed down, and SNAP benefits are shut off? That makes no sense at all.
Joe Manchin spoke with Jon Stewart yesterday, the former senator from West Virginia. I know you know him well. I wanted to play a little of this and just get your reaction to it, if I could, Senator Lankford. Here's number 93, Paul.
I would say to you, I don't know that West Virginia is a moderate state. It voted overwhelmingly for Donald Trump, who is not a moderate president.
3 times.
3 times.
Over 40. He beat Hillary by 41 points.
Right.
He beat Joe. He got lost to Joe Biden.
But not in West Virginia.
No, he still won by 40 points.
Right.
And he won again in 2024. And I've told my Democrat friends, I said, Joe, what happened to the West Virginia Democrats? And I said, nothing. They want to know what happened to the Washington Democrats. And they said, what do you mean? I said, I can tell you why the union coal miners and all the factory workers that I grew up with, where they are today, why they switched and started voting Republican. They believe that the Democrat Party in Washington basically spends more resources, effort, and time on able-bodied people that don't work or won't work than you do those who do.
So, Senator Lankford, that's your former colleague from West Virginia, Joe Manchin. Although, given what happened last night, how do you juxtapose what happened last night, the Democrat sweep, although it was deep blue, with what he just said about where a lot of former Democrat voters are today?
Yeah, I would still say that is still trickling up, and I hear it in Oklahoma. I hear it in other places as well that are former Democrats that have said all the focus is on social issues like men and women's bathrooms. It is focused on abortion. It is focused on how do we actually get benefits to people that are not working. Even the fight right now even is the federal government is paying 90 to 95% of the premiums for some people for their health care premium, and Democrats are saying, no, it needs to be 100%, not just 90 to 95% of their premiums. And there are a lot of folks saying, hey, wait a minute, I'm working, I'm engaged. Why suddenly am I paying for mine and somebody else is getting 95% of their health care premium paid, and that's not enough? So, no, that's still trickling up all over the country. Clearly not in New York City, where they say, hey, it's not enough, we want more free stuff. But that's going to be New York City. We'll see that is in the rest of the country.
President Trump floated the idea that you guys should just do away with the filibuster and get the government reopened. We have every reason to believe if Democrats were to take the Senate, they'd do it anyway. I think J.D. Vance was kind of alluding to that. I'm putting words in his mouth there. He said we shouldn't be afraid to do things because Democrats might do it later. I don't know if that's what he meant. I'm pretty sure that's true, though. What do you say about the filibuster, Senator Lankford?
Yeah, the filibuster needs to remain. I would tell you, if the filibuster was gone, imagine 4 years ago with Joe Biden in the White House with a Democrat Senate and a Democrat House, what would have happened in those 4 years and what they would have done. They would have definitely packed the court. They were talking over and over again about how we need to add at least 4 more members of the Supreme Court so we can pack the court and put all the people in we want, completely radicalizing the Supreme Court. They would have made Washington, D.C. a state immediately and got 2 more Democrat senators. They would have changed right-to-work laws around the state. They would have mandated abortion around the country. I mean, those are the things they've been pretty clear they would do if it wasn't for the filibuster. The filibuster is not just some Senate procedure. It is uniquely American, where there is one place in government where both sides have to be heard. I can tell you I've served in the minority and in the majority. It's frustrating when you're in the majority. It's very reassuring when you're in the minority that you can't just be run over. Both sides have to be heard. That is America. New York and Oklahoma do not agree on many things. But when we get to the United States Senate, Chuck Schumer has to face me and know that I have just as much of a vote as he does. And that allows both of us to have to come to the table and negotiate things out.
Oklahoma Senator James Lankford joins us. Your colleague, Marsha Blackburn, was with us yesterday, and we spoke to her about Arctic frost, Senator. This is a stunning bit of news. Some 430 Republicans or organizations, my word, spied upon. Her phone records, Senator Cruz's phone records among them. Verizon, AT&T told do not tell the senators that we want their phone records. AT&T did not capitulate. Verizon did, I guess. How are we to read the Biden administration surveilling so many of your colleagues? Maybe you?
Yeah, it was not me that we can tell so far, but it is one of those moments where you hear the current media talking about, President Trump's weaponizing the Department of Justice, and we go, that's actually what weaponizing the Department of Justice actually looks like. That's just not a random accusation that the media is playing now. It actually looked like what Joe Biden was quietly doing, taking the Department of Justice, literally spying on sitting members of Congress, pulling phone records, not just of who they called, but then the people that they called, and then researching them to be able to pull back. They were doing a full-on fishing trip to see if they could find some way to be able to take out not only Donald Trump for the future, but current sitting members of Congress. This really needs further investigation, because the little bit that we do know at this point, this is one of those moments where you're kind of pulling back the cover and you're finding a lot more underneath it.
Senator Lankford, the Supreme Court begins to hear oral arguments on President Trump's tariff policies. President Trump's been very clear. This is key. It's a linchpin for him. He thinks, the country's shot if the Supreme Court rebuffs his attempts on tariffs. Where do you see this going? What argument would you make for or against them? Are they working? And incidentally, I'll just tack on, do you think economically, if people are saying in polling right now they're frustrated still that the economy hasn't turned around, do you think President Trump's policies here by this time next year could cause the economy to be profoundly different?
I don't think that it's going to crash the economy, and that's been the statement out there all the time. It's going to drive up inflation dramatically and crash the economy. We have not seen that so far. Inflation has not gone down, but it's also not skyrocketed up, as everyone was saying at the very beginning when the tariffs started being discussed. We have a record stock market. We still have a growing economy, but there's definitely still weakness in the economy. We've got to increase the labor. All kinds of things are still going on there. Saying all that, Supreme Court's meeting today, and literally when I came into the Capitol this morning, I had to drive way around the Supreme Court because they've got barriers all around it. They're expecting lots of protests and things around the Supreme Court today, and they're taking no chances on it. But the Supreme Court will have to look at the actual statute itself. It's from 1977, where Congress gave the authority to the executive branch to regulate trade in extreme situations. And the president has said, hey, we have massive deficits. This is a major problem, and so he is actually inserting tariffs into this. Now, the law itself doesn't say tariffs, but the law does say regulate trade internationally, and the president's saying this is how I'm regulating trade. So this is that classic moment where Congress writes a law, the president executes it, but the Supreme Court steps in and actually interprets that law and says, is an action consistent? So this is all three branches having to have a conversation about what is and what is not appropriate on it. And I can't tell you which direction that they're going to go. I can tell you, no question, there has been a lot of countries that have opened up for trade that have allowed American products to come in. Australia is buying American beef now. Japan's buying American beef. There are new products that are going in that countries had blocked out our goods. We've seen that across Asia, across Central America, across Europe. So there are American products that are getting into new countries that weren't getting in solely because the president was able to put pressure on them through tariffs.
Do you think this whole shutdown was all about yesterday and the election? There seems to be a consensus that the Democrats are fully ready to open the government this week now that the election is over and are basically admitting we just needed to get through Election Day yesterday.
Yeah, that's been pretty clear from several of my Democrat colleagues have said, hey, let's start working on reopening now. We won the election in New York City. We won the election in Virginia. Those are the areas we were targeting. I'm sure SNAP recipients and kids in Head Start and families that weren't being paid for the last month are very excited that they were just a pawn to be able to help Mandami win New York City election that Chuck Schumer used. But it's a pretty remarkable thing that they actually shut the government down to try to affect the election. It may have worked, and so they may just do it all over again and again and again. And this would be the new play that they just keep doing from here to be able to use federal workers as pawns in their election schemes. I had last year in the Senate, when Republicans were in the minority before, I have worked towards getting a bill that doesn't allow government shutdowns at all. I had 57 votes for it in the Senate. I was just 3 votes short in this bill that doesn't allow government shutdowns at all. I'm just going to continue to be able to work towards this because Democrats are going to continue to be able to use this card over and over again and use federal workers and their families as pawns. That just should not be, both for a country like the United States of America, and it should not be just such an insult to federal workers.
So you think, are you of the belief this week government could reopen now?
It is very possible. That I've had several Democrat members, even yesterday, say, yeah, we're getting close. We'll get past the election, and then we'll talk about it. So, no, I don't think it is possible, but I do think this was all about the New York City election, the Virginia election.
Just with a couple of minutes, Senator, the fact that Obamacare has now come to the fore again as just a colossal economic failure and has only made things entirely more expensive, are the Democrats ultimately going to get their way to subsidize Obamacare further, or has this again brought out what is fundamentally wrong with it and why it was opposed, almost 20 years ago in the first place?
Yeah, it has certainly brought out the issues again and has allowed us to be able to have a moment to be able to talk about the differences between, in my state in Oklahoma, which is the greatest state in America, in my state in Oklahoma, if you were on the Obamacare exchange, the marketplace, the rates went up in the marketplace 200% in 6 years. At the same time, commercial insurance for health care went up 29%. The difference on that was Biden kept dumping more and more subsidies on top of all that, and so the subsidies were covering the actual rate increase. So the people weren't feeling it. The taxpayer was feeling it, but insurance companies were abusing it. This is exactly what everyone said would happen. President Obama at the start said insurance rates would go down by 25%. I'd be excited to meet somebody that their insurance rates have gone down 25%. other than people in the marketplace that are getting more and more and more tax subsidies to be able to cover the rising costs on it. So it is a colossal failure, and I'd be glad to be able to look at healthcare policy again, because we actually want affordable healthcare, not Obamacare. And what we've received on this is ever rising rates for everybody. People want choice and option. They want competition. They want ways to be able to get the healthcare costs down, not just every single year. Healthcare is going up 3 times the rate of inflation or more. So yes, we're ready to be able to talk about that, but we're not going to just dump more subsidies and just pretend it's not a problem. It is a major problem, and what the Democrats are asking for is $400 billion to be able to put on a failed program and just pretend it's not failed. It is.
Wow. So we can expect this fight will continue. Will Democrats want it with no election around for another year? We'll see. Senator, this has been a really great conversation. I hope you'll come back when you can and talk more with us. Thank you, sir.
You bet. Keep praying for the nation.
Amen. More in a moment on The Stigall Show. Got an email from Jim this morning. He said, Chris, love the show. Listen every morning from Orlando, Florida. We're looking live at Asbury Park, New Jersey, and the boards this morning. New Jersey and Jack Ciattarelli, 13 points was the distance between the winner last night, Sherrill, the governor-elect, and Ciattarelli, the Republican challenger. His third run, and I don't know, was this the... I guess the worst showing for Ciattarelli, Ed, if memory serves. I mean, he came within 2 or 3 of Murphy in the last election cycle. So to lose by 13 points is really a stunner.
It's a colossal failure. I don't know. I don't quite know who to blame for all of this. This data is way, way off. I really thought he had the momentum. He had the rise in the poll numbers, and I can't explain this one. 13 points.
Winsome Sears, the lieutenant governor of Virginia, lost to Abigail Spanberger by what appears to be at least 15 points without all the votes counted yet. Nancy emailed from Manchester, Missouri. She said, Chris, we're always hopeful that the blue states will wake up, but I guess things aren't bad enough there yet. It's especially discouraging when they elect mediocre people or dangerous people. Sometimes things have to hit rock bottom before they wake up. Disappointing Virginia didn't elect Winsome Sears. So election results are disappointing, but not a surprise. Stay in touch at chrisstigall.com, ChrisStigall. Let's go to Dave in Pittsburgh. Hey, Dave, I'm glad you called. What's on your mind? Good morning.
Hey, Chris. Just my opinion. I think that it's being overthinking it about the election. It's simple as turnout. I don't think it's anything to do with the economy, shutdown, the nuances of the political landscape. I mean, people don't want to get off their butts to vote in 2025. There's no president running. Nobody knows who's on the ballot. I didn't know who was there. I went to vote. I was the only one there. The only one there. Contrast that with last year, 2024. The lines are out the door. I mean, I just went down the line voting for R, and some of the judges I couldn't vote for because they were Democrat Republicans or Republican Democrat. I don't even know what that is. But I did vote against the 3 Supreme Court justices for Pennsylvania that were pro-abortion because the left made the mistake of putting that ad, make sure to vote for these to keep abortion legal. And I said, I want to remember those 3. But that's the only 3 I went right down the line.
You know, Dave, it's interesting you say this. Another Dave, that's Dave in Pittsburgh, and Dave emailed me this morning. He said, the reason we lose in most off-year elections is as simple as we're not politicians and we don't spend every waking hour thinking about politics. Conservatives vote every election but don't intend to work for elections, be a candidate, or even be a poll watcher. We want to earn a living and spend our time raising a family and enjoying our lives with our preferred activities. I'm happy to stroke a check, but I don't want to spend my time involved in politics. What do you say about that, Ed? We've long talked about that. That's true. I think that's consistently true about most of us who are normal. We like to raise our families and go to parades and picnics and soccer games, go down the shore, go to the mountains. We'll vote when asked to vote, but otherwise we stay out. Democrats, this is a lifestyle. Republicans, generally conservatives, we come around when called up. to vote, but that's about that.
That is about that, Chris, and I experienced that exactly what you said that we've talked about for the first time this year because my son had soccer on weekends, and trying to fit everything into your day. It's weird. You'll notice my social media activity's gone way down since you and I started working together, right? And it's just true. You find yourself more wrapped up with life and less wrapped up with politics. Something.
And are you better for that as a person? Are you better for that?
I don't know. I don't know because
I would say yes. I think your son will say yes eventually. Yeah, I would. I think your family will say yes.
That's the plan. Yeah, but then does that mean that we keep losing elections? Because we're not as engaged as they are.
Mike is in Ohio. Mike, I'm glad you called. Welcome into the show. Good morning.
Good morning, Chris. Thank you. I've been listening for about 8 months now in Ohio. Love your show. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. I'm grateful that you do. Sincerely.
Thank you. I may be in the minority on this, but hear me out. I'm glad Mandami won in New York, and here is why. I feel like we need to just go ahead and rip the Band-Aid off. Alcoholics, drug addicts got to hit rock bottom before they come to a realization. And I hope he gets everything he wants done. And New York can see socialism and communism for what it is, and maybe people will wake up. I think it's got to get bad before it gets better, and people reject the idea of it.
Okay. Listen, I think that I saw Greg Abbott of Texas, the governor down there. He said, you people fleeing New York don't think you're going to come into Texas without paying for it. We're going to tax you big if you come from New York after this election because Mandami won. But he also said last night, you guys have made your bed, so now it's time to lie in it. Yeah, I think a lot of people share that point of view. I'm glad you called, Mike. Thanks for listening. Eric Holder, Obama's wingman, has resurfaced, said the Supreme Court, a broken institution, and something has to be done about them. It has to be part of the national conversation. This is what I mean when I say these people, I have the clip, I won't play it, but I mean, this is, they make enemies. They polarize the country and make enemies of completely legitimate institutions, people who have won elections like President Trump and rightly and appropriately appointed their Supreme Court justices who uphold the Constitution. These people are now made enemies of. This is what motivates the American left. And in cases like yesterday, it works. Hey, are you ready to drop serious weight before the new year? Yeah, come on. I'm talking about at least up to 20 pounds. I bet you can even lose more than that, but at least 20. PhD Weight Loss is the trick. They've cracked the code with their metabolic reset system. This is a science-backed method that gets your body to burn fat first. It's worked so well for me. I lost over 40 pounds in just 4 months' time. I feel fantastic. This program is so simple, guys. They tell you exactly when to eat. They tell you what to eat. I'm the kind of guy, just tell me what to do. I don't want to think about it. Just tell me what to do. That's what they do. They customize the program to your body's needs and your specific schedule. PhD Weight Loss is the only program that guarantees success and your results. No starving, no endless workouts, no risky drugs. Just a smarter system that resets your metabolism. It shrinks that dangerous belly fat. It keeps the weight off, most importantly, for good. Now, when you call, if you do it today, they're going to waive your consultation fee. You'll get 2 extra weeks totally free, and they'll cover the cost of your food during the program. And just for booking, you're going to get Dr. Ashley Lucas's book, 5 Steps to Reset the Scale. It's quite a deal. But you got to do it quickly because this offer is only good until the end of October. Come on, lose weight with me. Call now. Mention the code New Year. Call 864-644-1900 and mention that code New Year. 864-644-1900 or visit the website myphdweightloss.com. 864-644-1900 or myphdweightloss.com. MyPillow is excited to announce they're having their biggest 3-in-1 sale ever with a limited edition product, a back-in-stock special, and a closeout deal you're not going to find anywhere else. MyPillow bed sheets, only $29.88, any color, any style, and any size, even the king size. Regularly priced at $119.98, now only $29.88. Once they're gone, though, they're gone for good. My Towels are finally back in stock, but not for long. Get a 6-piece My Towel set regularly priced at $69.98, now only $39.98. And for the first time, and the only time, get their limited edition premium My Pillows made with Giza cotton and a designer gusset. Queens starting at $17.98, kings at $19.98, and for a limited time, when you order over $100, you'll receive free shipping plus $100 in free digital gifts. 800-932-5056, promo code Chris, or use that promo code at mypillow.com, promo code Chris. Good to be with you. Welcome in on this Wednesday edition of the Stigall Show. Checking emails this morning. A lot of you had much to say. Charlie emailed from Marietta, Georgia. He said, here in Atlanta, 2 Public Service Commission Democrats upset Republicans with 60% of the vote. That's the first time in almost 20 years. So, yeah, and I'm getting notes from friends in pretty rural and conservative Pennsylvania that Democrats did well in school board elections, too. Democrats had a big day yesterday, no doubt about it. Interestingly, though, one notable Democrat didn't want to talk a lot about it. Chuck Schumer, on how he voted in the race between Mandami and Cuomo. Take a listen to this.
Today is election day in New York City. Did you vote for Mandami or Cuomo?
Look, I voted, and I look forward to working with the next mayor to help New York City.
What's that about? Exactly. Here to parse it, a political genius. The guy knows politics like the back of his hand. He also happens to be a newly minted captain in the United States Naval Reserve. Congratulations, Captain Sean Spicer. Welcome aboard, my friend.
That's me. I didn't know who you were talking about, but thank you. That's amazing.
Sincerely, before we get into the politics, and I really appreciate the invitation. I wasn't able to make it, but you were recently promoted to captain. I'm sorry. I wished I could have. I wasn't able, but it was a who's who, a bevy of who's who, to see you were a promotion in the Naval Reserve. That was a big day for you, I'm sure.
It was a big day. Thank you. Yeah, it was. It was a long time coming, and the only thing that's the only downside is you realize at this age and at this rank, that's when you're starting to look over the other side of the edge. So it was great, and to your point, lots of folks. My first CO was there. A lot of guys I served on active duty with. So it was very meaningful.
Why do you do it? May I ask you that? Why do you, given all that you have achieved and all that you could be doing, why do you continue to give your time to the United States Naval Reserve?
So it's fascinating you asked that question without being there, because that's what that was the speech, Chris. I literally said, the Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, was the presiding official, promoted me, the Secretary of the Navy, the CNO were all there, which was unbelievably mind-boggling. But my speech was about why I serve and why I stay in. And I went through a series of things. I'll send you the video if you really want to watch. But I think there's not one answer. I mean, the first is, for me, the Navy fills a void. I play politics a lot, as you mentioned at the intro, and it's tribal, right? I want my side to win. I want the other side to lose. In serving the Navy, you're serving the country. There is no, we're colorblind, we're partisan blind. I want the country to win. I feel a great sense of fulfillment, giving something back that we all collectively are part of. I know that's cliche, but part of the reason I went beyond this in the speech, but obviously for me, the folks that I get an opportunity to serve with are amazing. There were guys that were there that were part of my wedding. When you join this fraternity, and I say that not trying to be gender specific, but it is something that is bigger than yourself. And a lot of my people are coming to me saying, do you realize that so and so drove from Massachusetts to be here? And I'm like, yeah, I served on active duty with them. They were like, no, those guys just drove down for the night, they're driving back. And I'm like, yeah, that's what they do. Wow. I mean, like, there's people that you have make a bond with, and then it's for life. And so one of the guys that I was on the USS Ronald Reagan with flew out from California. He was our task force leader on that ship. And so it's an amazing sense of being part of something bigger than yourself and knowing that you're doing your little part for the country.
I know how much you love it, and I wanted to mention to this audience, in case they didn't know that had happened, what an honor and what a beautiful looking sight it was, and I know how hard you've worked and how dedicated you are to it, and so I wanted to lead by saying congratulations and thanks for your service to the country, Sean.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Let me ask you about this answer from Chuck Schumer. What was that? I mean, Mandami wins decisively. There's no harm in just lying at that point, even though I think he's basically admitting he didn't support Mandami. But why not lie? Why even after that's all said and done, he was cute about it? What's going on there?
Well, because two things. One is he didn't vote. I mean, I can't say this unequivocally, so just in case somebody but I think it's pretty obvious he, based on the fact that he didn't endorse him. Look, I look at this politically. He knows that he probably likely will face some kind of challenge from the far left, probably AOC. AOC and Mandami are very aligned. If Mandami is going to help anybody, it's going to be her. And therefore, it's like, why create a further problem for yourself, right? So if you're Chuck Schumer and you endorse or say, I'm supporting Mandami, and then Mandami comes out and supports AOC who challenges you, whereas if you could say in your talking points, I never supported the guy in the first place. I never, it preserves that. We know he probably didn't based on his previous actions. And I think it's politically long-term a little smarter to keep your cards close to the vest.
Is this the future of the Democrat Party, Mandami? Or
it's a great question.
There
Look, it's a great question because Democrats immediately recoil when you ask them that. And there's a reason. Look, they're going to say, oh, it's one race. It's just the mayor. Yeah, that's right. But look at the exit polls. Look at who everybody's behind. And meaning young people, women, they're all behind Mandami. And the party knows that. Why is Schumer scared? Again, he's scared because he knows that same wing is going to come after him. Look at what's going on in Massachusetts with Seth Moulton and potentially Ayanna Pressley trying to primary Ed Markey. The real rise in the Democratic Party, this isn't just one race. This is the future. But here's the thing that's fascinating to me about New York. In the past, Bernie Sanders and AOC and sort of these self-described socialist types, it's all been theoretical. It's like a college seminar class. They're part of a legislative body, so they can say that they can chirp off, but no one cares. What's going to happen with Mandami is he's an executive. Either you do it or you don't. Either if it is a success or a failure, and it will be a failure. My point is that now you actually can see all of this ridiculousness, this BS about free this and free that. We all know there's no such thing as free anything. And the reality is that when Mandami starts to put this into practice, it's going to fall on its face. And this is literally the political Wizard of Oz. The curtain's going to get pulled back and you're going to, holy smokes, there's really no such thing as free internet, free buses, free rent. Like, it doesn't work. And it will finally be exposed for the fraud that it is.
You think then, let him fall, let him fail. Some Republicans have said they're kind of almost happy. Let this guy totally bring Democrats in New York to their knees and make an example out of him. Is that how Republicans run next year?
Well, there's two things. One, he's going to do it to himself. I mean, he's going to get elected. He's going to have to say, so either, look, there's two options. One, he goes the route of the traditional politician. I tried. I failed. I couldn't do it. The legislature wouldn't do it in New York. The city council wouldn't let me do it. The state legislature assembly wouldn't let me do it. So either he says he admits it's a failure because he didn't know the system, or he actually tries to implement it and it falls on his face. We all know just on the cost alone, none of this works. And then what'll happen is that then I think Republicans can pin the tail on the donkey and say, this is what your flawed experiment looks like. Would you want that to happen nationally?
When Democrats vote, apparently this week, we've had 2 Republican senators this week say they have heard from their Democrat colleagues, okay, the election's over, we can reopen the government now. I mean, no one's going to remember next year that Democrats were basically admitting they shut the doors on the government and SNAP payments and all of that just to win an election, but that's exactly apparently what happened.
Yeah. Well, people have a short attention span in this country. I mean, I think the reality is that regardless, no one's going to, quote, pay a huge price for it. But I do think that
Could I ask you this, Sean, just with a couple of minutes left? I don't mean to rush you, but do you think the economy turns around? We know the economy is still obviously a great concern for many people. Do you think, not quite a calendar year, Trump's policies, by this time next year, ought things be better economically? I know we can't predict it, but if they are, will that create a different set of circumstances for Republicans next year?
So here's what when President Trump talks about all this investment, the foreign direct investment, asking countries and companies to come invest in the United States. That's a slow burn, right? So you can't just plop down a ton of money, $350 million, $1 billion, whatever it is, and say, poof, create jobs. Like, you have to plan for that, right? They build a plant, they start to move some manufacturing to an existing facility. My point in this is that it's going to crescendo, I think, and the question is it the right time? I believe so. So you jam all this money into the pipeline, and it just takes a little while to go through and come out the other side, where it's creating jobs and spurring economic growth. I believe that if these companies, even a fraction of them, come through the way they have told President Trump, this is going to be huge, because you think about injecting literally, I think it's north of $1 trillion, or it's close to it, or whatever. Several billion dollars. That has an effect. You can't deny that, right? And so I think it's just going to take a while. But what's happening, Chris, and this is the other thing that's colliding, AI, right? So I got into an Uber the other day, and the guy just starts chatting me up, and he's somehow involved in Lyft's something or other, council and this and that. He said there's predictions within the sort of the gig economy that Waymo takes over most Lyft, Uber driving, right? So think about all those gig economy. Yeah. So you got a bunch of stuff colliding at once, and the question is, how do people come out the other end?
It's the Sean Spicer Show. You got to catch him today and every day, because he analyzes this stuff on YouTube with great effect as well. Captain Sean Spicer, thank you, my friend.
Thank you.
We'll see you next time.
Big show tonight. Thank you.
More in a minute. Now, Axios is saying this morning, and good morning to you, Michigan. We're watching you on the Salem News Channel. Glad to have you here, whether you're watching, streaming on the Salem News Channel, on that Samsung Plus television, whether you're listening on great radio stations throughout Michigan and around the country, whether you listen to the podcast later. However you catch us, ChrisStigall.com. We're glad to have you along. Axios says that cash-strapped Americans could be a midterm headache. That's the question I've been asking of everyone this morning as we look at last night. It's blue. I know many of you have said, look, this is blue state stuff, Stigall. This is New York City. This is not a big deal. Just the News, this is John Solomon's outfit, says that the election night bloodbath sends a warning to the GOP about the midterms. There was, in short, simply no silver lining for the GOP Tuesday whatsoever. Virginia and New Jersey are traditionally blue states, and momentum tends to favor the out-of-party power in an off-year election. The sheer scope of Democrat wins seems to suggest a more specific frustration with Republicans than just the typical souring on incumbents. At least a few Republicans, for their part, seem willing to learn lessons. Several pundits, moreover, deemed the contests a decisive repudiation of Trump's focus, wait for it now, on what? Foreign affairs at the expense of the economy. This is the second time in as many weeks I have read from John Solomon's Just the News in which, and a couple of people have shot me snarky messages this morning to say the same thing. Well, Stigall, are you ready to start acknowledging that Trump isn't putting America first? He's been too involved in foreign countries and foreign affairs, and he needs to come home and start focusing on us? That is a stone-cold lie. Ed, you tell me if I'm wrong. You tell me if I'm wrong. You tell me if I'm too sycophantic, I'm too much in the Trump camp here. You make the case to me that these people who are now suddenly supposedly Trump voters and keep saying over and over and over again, Trump's not doing enough to put America first. You've been, I mean, maybe it's impossible for you to do because I've been here and you've been with me every morning making the case since Donald Trump took office and swore an oath. I don't think there's any president in our lifetime that has done more inside of a calendar year on behalf of this country and America first that I've ever cast a vote for. It's not even in dispute. So to say all of a sudden I'm a Trump voter and I don't think he's America first, I mean, if you can make that case, please go ahead, Ed.
No, Chris, there's 2 months left in the year, and already you and I were together with him at an energy summit where he secured billions of dollars from the top business leaders in the country. I'm trying to think his two overseas trips. He's secured billions of dollars of investment for America. No, I
That's why he goes overseas. He's not going overseas for vacations. He's not going overseas for fun. And by the way, let's talk about the southern border, which has been completely sealed. Let's talk about deportations. All the commerce he's bringing home. Who? Stay calm, Stigall. Don't. John Solomon's Just the News, a supposed conservative outpost, has yet again, for a second week, printed a story that says, well, I hope you Republicans have learned, and I hope Trump is listening and learned, that he'd better make America first his priority, or he's going to get his butt kicked like this again next year. It's not true. People, and now I have people that are supposedly Trump voters and conservatives telling me that Trump is not America first, and that's why guys like Mandami are winning. Now, Ed, we did kind of talk off the top of the show. You said that the economy still sucks. I don't think I can dispute that. I mean, it's improving, but it's not improved enough for people. People are struggling. I get it. I'm not denying that. I do think it's going to take a minute. But the suggestion that Trump's not doing enough fast enough, ergo, let's go with the Islamist commie in New York is the answer. I mean, I have people on our side, supposedly, and I don't believe it, actually. I think it's foreign money and trolls, but suggesting, well, this is what you get. You know, we're going to start having young men who voted Trump looking at Mandami because Trump lied. He didn't make America first, didn't fix it. Is that your position?
I mean, that's not my position, but yes, free candy, free ice cream, free housing, it's all very attractive. And the thing is, remember, the left never has to deliver on any of those things. Only conservatives do.
Axios says cash-strapped Americans signal rising costs could be Trump's midterm headache. But if you scoot ahead here, among Republicans, 20% blame Trump a good or great deal for the economy. 48% when asked how much they blame Trump say not much. So that's among Republicans. Most Republicans do not blame Trump specifically for the economy, but the economy still, it's a problem. Yes, of course it is. And I do think, as Sean said, it'll turn around next year. But Qatar money is very, very active. I'll just say that. It's an interesting thing. Is it the mail-in ballot? Is that what it is? Trump hates mail-in voting. I do too. I mean, I think it's terrible. Can you put the toothpaste back in the tube? I don't know. Caroline Leavitt addressed mail-in voting yesterday from the White House podium. Take a listen to this. Number 6, it is everywhere. Can it be undone? Can it be outlawed? Listen to this.
The White House is working on an executive order to strengthen our elections in this country and to ensure that there cannot be blatant fraud, as we've seen in California with their universal mail-in voting system. It's absolutely true that there's fraud in California's elections. It's just a fact. It is just a fact. They have a universal mail-in voting system, which we know is ripe for fraud. And if you want to deny that, I'm happy to provide you all of the evidence for it. I'd be glad to send that to you after this briefing.
Rigged.
Fraudulent ballots that are being mailed in the names of other people, in the names of illegal aliens who shouldn't be voting in American elections. There's countless examples, and we'd be happy to provide them. As for executive action the White House is taking, yes, we are looking into that. And like any executive order, of course, any executive order the president signs is within his full executive authority and within the confines of the law.
So we're leaning on those in office and in punditry to kind of give us their take on what happened last night, Virginia, New Jersey, New York City. What does it mean for next year? Wesley Hunt watches it closely because he's not only a sitting congressman representing Texas's 38th district, he's also making a run for that Senate seat there and joins us this morning. Congressman, glad to have you.
Good morning. How are you doing this morning, Chris? Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, of course, and thank you so much. Throughout the great state of Texas, you guys have your elections pretty well buttoned up, but it is obviously a problem in many, many states, and it's only getting worse. The mail-in vote, President Trump doesn't like it at all. I don't know if anything can be done about that at the federal level. Probably not. States get to run their own elections, but the RNC did figure it out, and President Trump, to great effect, ended up winning using their system. I mean, we can play in their sandbox and win. Last year showed us that. But what do you say about kind of the broader way in which we vote? Will that always be a problem for Republicans?
Look, I hate mail-in voting too, and if you're a disabled person or not an able-bodied person, they can get up, get out of your pajamas, put shoes on and clothes, and go actually vote in person. I think that's a shame. That's exactly what we should be doing as red-blooded Americans. If you are disabled, well, then let's have another conversation. But you are right. It is a situation that is ripe with fraud. We're seeing it run rampant, especially in blue states. And the idea of curtailing it or coming up with a better solution is something that's very important. And you are right. Here in Texas, you have to have an ID to vote. I just voted yesterday here in Texas, and I just showed my ID. There was a nice lady there who verified my address and my name, and that's already in the system. And then when I voted on a paper ballot, printed it out, put it through another machine, they verified it, and then I got my "you voted" sticker, I voted sticker, and I was very, very proud of that. I think every single state needs to follow that example if they care about free and fair elections. And I'll end with this. Even with the system here in Texas being what it is, we are still having illegals vote in our elections. That is a complete abomination. That is something that only should be done for American citizens, because that's what it means to be an American citizen, that we get to vote in our own elections, and illegals do not dictate our leadership. And so we have some work to do moving forward.
So, Congressman, that is something one could presume could be dealt with at the federal level, making sure illegals are not. I know DOJ is looking at that. I know President Trump has talked about it. Is there a federal fix to voter fraud?
There absolutely is, especially when it comes to illegals, because this goes to border security. This goes to the overall security of this nation, which also means protecting the ballot box in a way that doesn't infringe on states' rights and keeping illegals out of this country and not allowing them to vote kind of via transitive property. They shouldn't be in this country, so how are they voting? I do believe that that's a way that the federal government can attack this. And I also want people to know this as well. I'm the kind of guy that's for small government. I'm the kind of guy that believes in this constitutional republic. So I'm also very cautious with federal government overreach, because when that happens, I guarantee you don't want it. And this is why states like Texas and Florida are growing at a rapid pace, because we keep the federal government out of our lives as much as possible. So that should go for elections as well, unless there are ways to keep illegals from voting in our elections, and we should figure that out and get to the bottom of it.
Wesley Hunt represents the 38th District of Texas. He has entered the primary race to be the next senator from Texas, challenging the sitting Senator John Cornyn. And I want to get into that in just a minute, but you have probably heard how real it is or how big it is, I don't know, but you've probably heard there's this schism right now amongst the base who considers themselves MAGA, America First. I was just reading a story a little while ago, and I've heard it for a couple of weeks now. There seems to be this, again, I don't know how real it is. I'm not convinced it's real, but I have to acknowledge it. We're starting to hear some influencer types, podcaster types, suggesting President Trump's agenda isn't America First. He's spending too much time overseas, blah, blah, blah. I literally don't see it that way. I'm not saying President Trump can't be criticized, but how you can look at this presidency and not say he is moving heaven and earth to make America first is beyond me. But is there anything to last night's outcome in the blue states, Virginia, New Jersey, New York City, and some on our side, if they're real, and I'm not sure they are, suggesting, well, the economy still sucks. That says the president's not doing enough, so maybe we got to look at somebody like Mandami. Again, I don't know that that's real, but there are people pretending they're part of the MAGA movement saying that. Do you see it, and if so, what do you say to it?
Well, I also need to tell everybody to tranquilo, por favor. I mean, everybody needs to relax, please, and calm down. Okay, it's gonna be okay. We're talking about Virginia, and we're talking about New York. And let me tell you something. They're going to feel a lot of pain. And as somebody that served in the military, is a West Point grad, I know the definition of pain. These people are getting ready to have a very long 4 years, and it is completely their fault, and they got to deal with it. In terms of the MAGA movement, President Trump won a year ago. He won the country. He won every single swing state. 85% of the counties in this country shifted to the right toward Trump. This is still Trump's party. He won the state of Texas by 15.7 points. It is my opinion that we have got to double down on the MAGA movement and follow the leader, follow our leader that the country duly elected a year ago. And if we double down on him, then we're going to be just fine, because people are wanting to see the kind of change that he is implementing in this country. What we don't need are weak candidates that run away from the president, because when you do that, then you lose the base. The midterms are coming, which means that turnout is going to be lower, which means that President Trump is not going to be on top of the ticket. So you still need the President Trump voter to come out and vote for you. And that means you have to be an America First patriot who is a dynamic candidate who believes in this agenda and has been on board from day one, and it's people like me. I was the first person in the country to endorse President Trump when he ran. I campaigned with him. I was one of his top surrogates. And the one thing that I saw across this country is people are willing to come out and support someone when they see that level of transparency, authenticity, and honesty. Are you going to put America first or not? And if you're a guy that will, I do believe that we can win overwhelmingly in the midterms.
We have a lot of Texans in this audience, Congressman Hunt, and you've decided to jump in and challenge a fellow Republican, John Cornyn, in the Senate. He's been there a long time. Why do you think it's time for you to replace John Cornyn as the Republican from Texas in the Senate?
Because John Cornyn is the definition of the schism that we're seeing in our country. He is a guy that was anti-Trump. He is a guy that supports that co-authored gun control legislation. He is a guy that voted for amnesty 11 times. He is a guy that it took over a year and a half to endorse President Trump. Okay, this is the definition of anti-America First, and this is not what the people of Texas wanted. You have a 24-year incumbent who has spent $45 million in this race. Yeah, I said it. $45 million in this race before the filing deadline, and he is still losing. And the people of Texas want an alternative, and that's why I got in this race. I'm an America First patriot. I'm born and raised here in Texas. My children are born and raised here in Texas, and I'm going to die in Texas. And I'm going to leave it better than I found it. And people like John Cornyn are not the solution to being the future of this party. It is time to let people know that the United States Senate is not a retirement community. It is time for young America First patriots like me, like JD, like Marco Rubio. These are the people that are surrounding President Trump. They are young. We are reinvigorated America First patriots, and that's exactly what we need for the future, and that's why I got in this race.
Wesley Hunt represents the 38th District of Texas. He's running to be the next senator from Texas. The government shutdown, you guys in the House, you've passed your part of it. You're kind of waiting for the Senate to act here. I've heard it said Democrats are fully willing to reopen the government now that the elections are over. This was all an election ploy to drive turnout. Maybe that worked. I don't know. But do you think this comes to an end this week?
I would like to see it come to an end. But at the end of the day, I've been saying this for weeks. As far as our party is concerned, this is a case of no retreat, no surrender. We have done our part. We did our part in the House. The president wants to open up the government, and he has for weeks. Every single Republican, with the exception of one, has voted to keep every single senator, with the exception of one, has voted to keep the government open. And we have this filibuster issue, so the threshold is 60 votes, which means that this is the Chuck Schumer, this is a Democrat government shutdown, and they're going to have to own it. But under no circumstances should we capitulate to the radical left's agenda by giving in to making sure that illegals get health care, that we weaken our southern border. These are the kinds of things that we have to absolutely say no to. And I think that, to your point about it being a bit of a political ploy for voter turnout in states like Virginia, I kind of buy into that, and I subscribe to that theory. But at the end of the day, we do need to reopen the government, but we as Republicans have got to stand our ground.
Do you see in the House more rescissions coming perhaps before this session is over and we head toward the election? What do you think Mike Johnson and House Republicans can do to stoke a little excitement right now going forward?
I am always a straight shooter. And at the end of the day, we have a 1 or 2 seat majority at this point. The reason why we haven't brought more rescissions to the floor is because there's going to be 1 or 2 people that aren't going to vote for it, and it ain't going to pass. Now, does that mean that we shouldn't try? Of course we should try. Should we get some of the people on the record that are going to be against this to get them on record so that the America First movement sees who's with us and who's against us? Of course. But I also think we have to be pragmatic and understanding that with a 1 or 2 seat majority, and then now that is over, because I think the Democrats have filled a seat or two last night, it's just going to be very hard to get every single Republican on board when you have that slim of a majority.
Right. Wesley Hunt, he represents the 38th District of Texas. He's jumping in the Senate race to be the next Republican senator from Texas. You're always welcome back, Congressman. We appreciate your time this morning, sir.
God bless you. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Robert emailed me from Farmersville, Texas. Said, Chris, I just heard you say you guys in Texas have your elections pretty well buttoned up. I'm not sure where you get that idea. I suffered the pain of blackening my selection boxes on my ballot with an ink pen in yesterday's election. This was new, only to have a man feed that ballot into a machine to be tallied. I'm a 28-year IT services professional, and I can assure you any computer in the path of tallying ballots has full control over the election's outcome. All I could think of standing there in line to vote was, do they think all of us are gullible enough to believe adding the ink pen to the ballot process solves the election fraud problem? I'm fed up with being seen as an underling of our government overlords that keep trying to toss us a bone, so we'll shut up. Well, look, Robert, I don't know about what you're specifically saying. I in my opinion, a physical ballot in which you fill out an oval and put it in the machine to be counted is, I mean, short of people physically sitting and counting by hand every ballot, I don't, and maybe that's what you'd like to do, but I mean, my point is, as Wesley Hunt said, in Texas, you at least have to show identification that you're a real voter and that you're legal to vote. I'm saying to the extent that you can legally validate everyone voting should be voting the way they're voting. I understand the machine thing. That's another part. Look, I am not a machine guy. I don't like machines. I don't like electronics in our elections. I don't. But I think, Fast Eddie, we've been down that rabbit hole too. Ask Mike Lindell how that's working out. Ask Tucker how that's worked out. I mean, we've litigated the machine thing, which I know a lot of you have trouble with, and I'm not suggesting you shouldn't have trouble with it, but what do you say about machines, Ed? I don't know. I mean, they're here. It's like mail-in voting. It's here. I don't know what to tell you about it. The thing is, Trump won, Ed. I mean, Trump won using these systems that we've really complained about, legitimately complained about, and Trump won, and he won bigly. So it's not as though we can't figure this out, is my point. Right?
You're exactly right, Chris. And yes, we have vetted every single which way. We've given platform to a lot of people who had all of the theories, all the books on these topics. If you want to go back to our COVID shows on the election of 2020, feel free. We did a lot of it. But yes, Chris, the left has figured out that it's ballots, not votes. Do I hate that a lot of these ballots are illegal? Absolutely I do. But we have to figure out where our ballots are as Republicans.
I want to mention, just don't really have anything to add on it other than it was just an unbelievable scene yesterday, this UPS plane crashing near Louisville's airport last night. Did you see that footage? Just devastating. 4 people on the ground were killed. Another 3 who were on board the flight are presumed dead, said the mayor of Louisville. The numbers were expected to grow as emergency crews combed the far-reaching scene for additional victims. It was UPS Flight 2976 carrying 3 crew members, 50,000 gallons of jet fuel. Now, if the scene that and by the way, it was bound for Hawaii from Louisville, so does that mean, I don't know. Does this mean they would have flown directly with that kind of fuel?
Yep.
Yeah, okay, so that would have been a direct flight. Yeah, so they were loaded up to fly all the way to Hawaii, which explains the volume, the sheer size and volume of the explosion, the fire. And again, I'm not being a pilot and not really understanding these things. I'm not entirely sure I understand it, other than maybe it was just the size of the aircraft and the speed it was going. It looked, Ed, by the videos that I was seeing, was it on fire prior to crashing? Did it the videos that I've seen of it kind of look like that. Again, not to put you on the spot, but that's kind of what I've seen. Have you seen any of those videos?
I can't say not in depth like that, not more than the clip that's floating on social media, sorry.
But didn't it look as though as it was coming down that it was already aflame? That's kind of what I thought I was seeing.
Yeah, like it was already on fire, yeah. And I would assume at this point that's correct. Like it could have been a malfunction of sorts.
And so then you're talking about what looks to be, I don't know, is it hundreds of yards? I don't know how long the trail of flame is. I mean, it's just like, so you get that a very heavy jet is coming in for a crash landing and scoots, but the trail of fire then leads you to believe that's fuel. And so I wonder to myself, does the plane, I don't know, does anybody, see, I probably should call a friend who's in air travel because I don't know this stuff. Can a plane release fuel? Any of you guys know? Like, I started to think to myself, like, was that trail of fire because fuel was leaking or been released as it was scooting? Does that make sense?
A plane like that can dump fuel. Usually you have to have it approved, and they do it at high altitude, but you wouldn't do it so close to the ground.
Bobby Bass, our audio cowboy. So a plane like that can dump fuel, but you're saying you don't think that's likely what that is. I mean, but clearly that's fuel that's burning, that trail of fire that goes on for quite a while on the ground. That's got to be driven by fuel, I would assume, right?
The one video that I saw looked like the airplane was on fire while it was on the end of its takeoff run, and this pilot started to rotate and gain altitude. I don't know that for sure. I don't want to say the wrong thing, but that's somebody from the ground got that little video that's all of a sudden looks like the plane was on fire.
Man, I mean, just a horrific scene. I'm going to watch that story because I'm intrigued with the sheer length of the trail of fire, what happened there. But anyway, our prayers for the people of Louisville. So that's a wrap for another Chris Stigall Show podcast. Thanks for committing to it, listening to it all the way through. You're a fighter. I like that about you. Hope you'll leave it a 5-star review and a written review. Apple Podcasts, Spotify. We'll see you next time here on the Chris Stigall Show podcast.
The Chris Stigall Show podcast.